Right. So, Assalamualaikum and very good afternoon, Miss. So first of all, thank you for accepting my invitation to be in this interview. Um, I would say I'm very grateful because this is my first time, like having interview with someone. Um, I think this is not relating to the assignment, but I just wanted to ask, how are you doing, Miss?
Oh, I'm doing okay. Today is quite busy, so taking it 1 hour at a time, one thing at a time. But other than that, it's been very productive. So yeah. Have you had?
Okay.
How about you? How are you doing?
I think for me, last week had been demoralizing,
Oh,
and yeah, so I mean, you have to go through, so I'm okay with it.
okay. I hope you're better now.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay, so I think let's just dive straight into the very first question.
Okay.
Okay, so I think this question is pretty generic. Knowing that there are a few types or groups of mental health disorders, what is the most common mental health issue that dealt by people here in Malaysia?
Mm, do you want to know just the common issues dealt with in Malaysia is mainly the common two I notice is depression and anxiety. So what that means is people experience like low moods, demotivated, and that can be shown if they're students. That means they feel demotivated to study.
Mm,
They withdraw from their friends or their family, and then struggle to eat or to sleep. Either to gain some weight or lose weight or lose sleep or like only spend the day sleeping, um, as well as sometimes in like quite serious cases or like how it escalates is that they start to fail their classes, not able to deliver assignments and so forth lah.
mm,
So that's an example. What we can see in terms of like anxiety can be also like feeling really stressed with coping with the academic pressure, or not necessarily just academic, but like
mm,
the career / academic pressure or workload, managing time, um, and other anxious things like even socializing. I
mm.
notice is like something like making friends is a little bit tough or having
Yeah.
dispute.
Mm,
Macam you're a little bit unhappy with your housemate. How do you deal with that? So, oh, this person doesn't clean their dishes and all these things. So, and it can translate to other areas like maybe issues with like the family. So it's like communication issues, relationship issues, as well as sometimes sense of like loneliness, feeling
mm,
alone, feeling like there's no one you can talk to, there's no one you can express your feelings to, which can be a bit, hard and can be quite, again, like exhausting and quite a heavy thing to carry all by yourself. So those are the common issues, mainly in terms of like the depressive symptoms and anxious symptoms and stress.
mm.
Yeah, that can originate from various factors like work, can be from studies, family, relationship, even your own identity and self purpose. Like
But they seem to like lead to one thing, which is this depression or something like that.
depression is more of like how it presents itself.
Uh,
So, example, if you're struggling with, you're having like relationship issues, right? You're,
mm,
not having a good relationship with your family or your parents, and you're struggling to cope with it,
mm,
and you keep it all by yourself. So you know how you cope with it pun macam
yeah.
it contributes. So then you realize, and then it lingers. So the situation doesn't get better. Sometimes it might get worse. So that's when depressive symptoms might come. So you feel like, oh, what's the point of waking up every day? Feeling hopeless, feeling like you are really tired, you have no energy. And it's all mainly because you have these thoughts surrounding the issue that you feel trapped in, which is regarding your poor relationship with your parents. Yeah, I hope that makes
Okay.
sense.
All right. So move swiftly onward to the next question. I think for this question you can answer based on like your experience, or if you happen to have data on it, you can give the info about it. So I just wanted to ask, like, what is the age group mental health issue prominent in, and why is that age group?
Hmm, great question. Do correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the recent research they conducted during the pandemic, especially when it comes to mental health concerns, right? The spike of it after the pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, we can see that it affects the younger population. So, like, I would say like late teens to maybe late 20s or even early 30s, like that kind of range. That's the common thing. And the reason for that, there are multiple reasons, I believe. I think first things first, definitely the younger generation are more exposed and aware about mental health. So when you're more exposed and you're more aware, and your peers are also, they also know about it, then it's a little bit more normal to talk about it. I'm not saying it is something that everyone accepts, but it is a conversation that we don't necessarily shy away from. But it depends on case to case basis. I mean, it's not saying like it's fully accepted or what, but it's a topic that we don't ignore, which is mental health lah. Like sometimes lah, okay. Um, that could be possibly one. Another thing I do think also is in terms of possibly like the other generation or the other groups might not fully report themselves. I mean, like truly say like, oh, actually I'm struggling, but then
Mm.
actually they don't admit it, or they don't want to admit it, or they don't want to disclose it. So that is also comes to taking the research or the numbers a bit with a pinch of salt lah, to see to see regarding which population or which age group and why. So, and also again, for the older generation, it is I mean, mental health is not something spoken about. It's only now,
Mm.
a little bit more than before. So it is new for them. It is foreign and also uncomfortable sometimes, probably a lot of times. And the way they cope is also very different towards this whole regarding mental health issues. So there might be also some stigma and taboo on certain topics, on certain issues like expressing your emotions,
Mm.
being in tune with your mental health, checking in on yourself. And so the beliefs and the coping styles are also different. So three main factors: awareness in the younger generation. Second one is essentially could be underreporting, and third is could be the stigma that different age groups might face.
So I think I don't quite get the first reason. Like, so you are saying that when mental health being talked much into like the public, so it's become worsen or something like that.
Mm, I can see that you can see that way. It's um, like now social media is a thing, so people raise more awareness about ADHD, and suddenly
Mm.
everyone has ADHD,
Ah, yeah.
right?
Uh,
it can go that way, right? So that's super important to actually not self-diagnose. But I understand also sometimes getting diagnosis and getting an assessment is not very accessible.
Mm.
So that's why some people they they relate and they're like, oh, this is what I feel like
Okay.
I am, and this is how I'm going to cope with it,
Mm.
right? It's not necessarily worse, and I don't know what to say. I don't necessarily think it's worse, and I just think it's brought to light. Like
A big
um,
topic nowadays, something like
yeah,
that.
like previously nobody talks about it, nobody
Yeah.
mentions it, and then like I said, more of like how the situation somehow puts us. It could be because the pandemic pushed us
Mm.
to really consider it, right? Because of all the other issues that raised upon it. It could be because, again, acceptance among the community. It could be social media. You're seeing it more, so you're just like, yeah, it's not something that's weird or that's foreign. It's like I've seen it, I know about it, I've heard about
Mm.
it. So it's, yeah, it's more not necessarily getting worse, but it's probably getting the light to its true nature of how it impacts every single one of us, actually. Yeah.
Because when you said it, like for the first time, I thought when mental health being known to the public, I think it's pretty good because it can bring the awareness, like, oh, this thing is actually like happened to you or something like that. But I think
Yeah.
that's a really good point. Like sometimes, like when things being too viral, I like the word when you use like self-diagnose. I think that's pretty like describe it very well. So I think moving on to the next question. Um, I think I heard this a lot that women are more emotional than men. So from that statement alone, do you think that there is distinction between gender groups regarding mental health issue, whether mental health issue is usually dealt by most men or women, and why that gender group being the most?
Great question. By the way, all your questions so far are really, really great questions.
Thank you.
Um, this question is, you know, a really important question. Actually, I would say, yeah, the first things first, the stereotype that women are more emotional than men, right? Um, is really about there's a lot of like cultural and political and yeah, cultural political stereotypes here. This is literally toxic masculinity
Mm.
happening, right? This is internalized misogynistic values that our society has really carried for a long time, right? So, um, but if you ask me from a mental health professional, from science, right? Are we to say men are less emotional? Absolutely not. They are not saying equally as emotional. It's not necessarily um, influenced by gender, but yes, there are some biological things that can influence your ability to regulate your emotions, which can come to hormones.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that men are incapable of being emotional, or if that, and even in that, that's nothing wrong with feeling your emotions. It's just more of what is accepted for that specific gender group. So we can see, especially in for men, like there is a lot of societal expectations, same as women.
Mm.
But when it comes to mental health, it's a big one because it is limiting the men to fully embrace their wide range of emotions that they actually feel. So commonly, they society has come up with a list of like, these are acceptable emotions that men can feel, these are not. Why? Well, because it means you're weak, because it ties back to like thinking that when you feel your emotions, it goes back to your competence, to your ability to function, your ability to lead. So it shows also in, like, for example, women who go into higher roles in management or in work, right? Oh, women cannot lead because they're too emotional.
Mm.
They can't make difficult decisions because they'll be influenced by emotions. So for men, they have that. Imagine, you hear that, you're like, okay, so emotions, absolutely no, no. So and it's mainly about that, like the toxic masculinity and this whole concept of being strong, being um, unaffected by things, which is honestly not adaptive and not helpful at all. It's actually years of worth of suppressing your emotions just manifest in other sorts of issues that can come up, like physical symptoms, illnesses, even feeling disconnected or unsatisfied with your life, because you're like, because that's the whole thing. It's really about denying yourself as a human, that you're given all of these ranges and complex emotions, but you're not able to feel them because society says, no, this is not good. Who says so? So it's more about, like, now, like, we want to start questioning these, like, unhealthy or, like, not necessarily, like, rigid beliefs that society tells us that, oh, men should not feel this way and women should be this way.
Mm.
So again, they say, oh, women are hormonal. They when they give birth, or when they have period, that's why they it's
Yeah.
very much, well, yes, in certain aspect, hormones do influence. Like I say, it does influence the intensity or your ability to regulate, but it is not necessarily meaning that they're doomed
Mm.
to not be able to learn how to regulate in those heightened moments because it's influenced by hormones. So, and that doesn't mean also men don't experience the fluctuation of hormones,
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, that's what I would say essentially, why there's like a very big difference in this stereotype of which gender is more emotional and why
Mm.
is it like that. It is definitely about that internalized masculinity, toxic masculinity, that's very harmful towards men, which in fact men are the population that suffers the most because they suffer in silence.
Mm.
And to have the society already tell you or to block you, right? If you, for example, if you're trying to seek for help, but people around you say don't go for help because that means you're crazy, that means you're weak, that
Yeah.
means you're not a real man. um, Imagine that, but your own voice telling you that. That's how harmful toxic masculinity really is, because it's no one telling you these things except actually yourself. So trying to break that, trying to change that, because it limits you from actually getting the help that can really, really benefit you before it's too late, right? Before anything bad can happen to you. So it's, like I said, like the man population, they suffer a lot in silence. So
But
yeah,
I like how you put it like in both perspective. Like I know that you are focusing more on men, but you also put in like women aspect perspective. Like I can see both sides. Like women can also like being stereotyped. Like oh, when they want to become a leader, like oh, you can't become a leader because you're a woman. You will be affected by your emotion. Blah blah blah. So
that's right.
that's I think being able to see from both perspective really like open your minds toward these things. Even
Right?
though like from my question, I try to focus on like wait on one side only, but it's good to actually like being open and see both of them.
Both sides. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can see essentially how the stereotype harms not just men but also women.
Yeah.
Like men not being able to accept and acknowledge their emotions, and women
Mm.
not being able to see as capable
Yeah.
for being labeled as this emotional beings, Yeah.
Yeah. So, move on to the next question. I would say the very first step to solve the problem is that you have to know the problem itself. And in
Yeah.
terms of mental health, you have to be like self-aware upon it. So is there any sort of symptoms that people can know of if they are dealing with mental health issue? Or how do they become self-aware upon knowing if they are dealing with mental health issue or not?
Great question. And that's a very interesting perspective because a lot of times or at least I hear, they talk about, this is the issue. The first step is always advocacy, education. But your statement of self awareness is even more impactful and important because we can educate as much as we want, but the choice to be self aware is,
Mm,
it's per person, right? It's up to them whether
mm,
they want to. They're being fed with this information. It's up to them whether they want to receive it and comprehend it. Can
mm,
so that's really great. To build your self awareness, I would say the first thing that comes into my mind is actually really just tuning into yourself. What it means is that you check in on yourself. You know how you
mm,
check in on your friends, like, hey, how have you been doing? Like, and then if they answer genuinely, they would tell you, oh, I've been feeling like this. I've been really tired. I didn't eat really well. This has been happening. This is what I've been doing. Have that kind of conversation, but with yourself.
mm,
So that really builds your self awareness on your physical body, your emotions, so checking in on your emotions, and then as well as your thoughts. What kind of thoughts has been running in your mind lately? Has it really consumed you? Is it really healthy, or do you find like you need some distance, some space with your thoughts so that you can be able to focus on something else that's more beneficial for you lah. So I would say number one, try to practice to check in on yourself and to tune into yourself. So that is that's essentially how you build self awareness, and from there, um, really tuning into your breath. Like how when I'm suddenly I notice my heart is racing
mm,
and I'm not breathing as deeply. So self awareness means, or you're curious about it. Or what about this situation is making me feel this way? Oh, actually, because and then you tune into your thoughts. Oh, I'm thinking a lot about this presentation I have to do tomorrow. And, I'm just actually honestly in the back of my head,
mm.
I think I'm gonna screw it up, or you have a lot of negative
Yeah.
thoughts about it,
Mm,
right? So that's essentially being self aware. You know what's, especially in the moment, like ideally, in the moment, you can, yeah, tune into your senses, to your emotions, and to your physical sensations and your thoughts. Yeah. And in terms of like what are some symptoms, I would say looking into the first sign is actually sleep. If you're having sleep
mm,
issues, just looking into the basic needs. You need to sleep well, you need to eat. If your appetite is disrupted and it's not caused by anything physical, then perhaps it's best to look into it as well. But usually, sleep is the first thing that starts to show. Maybe you're not sleeping well. Maybe you're, waking up really tired, or you can't fall asleep easily, or you find yourself waking up or getting a lot of nightmares. All
mm,
those things lah. So that's the first one sign, and from there you can proceed lah to see, are am I in a place of like I'm not necessarily present anymore. I'm just worrying about the future, or I'm stuck in the past. I'm not present. I'm just somewhere else lah.
mm.
So yeah, those are essentially some early warning signs you can check that maybe something is up with my mental health. So from there you can, and essentially checking on your mood. If you're feeling low all the time, you're feeling, anxious a lot, and you find it like you what people normally feel is like they're losing control. Yeah, so that's also another telltale sign. From there, then you can see, okay, how can I, what do I think about this? So you can try and Google some of the symptoms that you're feeling. But like you
Mm.
said, you need to know the problem
Yeah.
first. So yeah,
But I think knowing the problem alone will not solve the problem, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
unless you act upon it. So
yeah.
I
Betul?
think you already said about like one of the solution is to go to sleep. I think other than that, like what the person should do or can do upon knowing about having mental health issue. Like
Mm, mm,
because I think I think this sort of extra info that I wanted to know because for me, in terms of mental health, I think I'm pretty much like to express my feelings toward I don't know my surrounding. Even I think I'm the one that tend to like message you because I know you are a psychologist. So I think like that's the right thing to do. I wanted to express things, but some people they
don't
don't
feel.
yeah
Yeah,
don't feel to express like yeah. So what they can they do?
yeah. Actually, that's a really good question, and you're so right about how not just like having access to a mental health professional can be really, really difficult,
Mm,
but then also the discomfort or the awkwardness or the fear that
yeah.
comes with it, right? To talk to a professional. Like, so sometimes talking to a professional or therapy may take more time or may not necessarily be like a, how to say, like something that you can get now. You might
Mm,
need more time to get used to the idea, might really need to like convince yourself or calm yourself to it. And finding your therapist might take some time as well. So it's a, honestly, I can totally understand it can really be a daunting process to go for therapy or for counseling, right? And it might not, again, it might not be accessible to everyone. So I would say you said a really great thing, which is expressing yourself. Honestly, that is one of the most. It's a great thing to do. Like, it's one of the things that can really protect
mm,
your mental health. Like a lot of the times, people who struggle with mental health issues, they carry their mental burdens by themselves. They don't feel like they can connect or be vulnerable to people because they might not feel safe. So being able to express is a way, it's a really great way to not just it not to just it actually what we're looking for as humans is connection, to feel like we belong,
mm,
right? A sense of belonging. And that is, like I said, a protective thing. So a way for you to feel like you belong, a way for you to stray away from feeling lonely, a way for you to feel like you feel connected is to express, is to reach out, is to create these vulnerable, deep moments with people, right? About yourself and about themselves. But like you said, there are some people who struggle with that. Some people who
yeah.
don't want to do that, who might feel uncomfortable, might not feel safe. And that's the thing about expression. It doesn't have to be in that way. There are so many ways that you can express yourself. There's ways that you can express yourself through art,
Mm,
through music, through singing, through dancing, through running, through exercise. So essentially, what you want to do is you want to have an outlet where you can release all these thoughts that you might be holding on to. You can imagine, like, for example, if you find it really hard, you can talk to yourself as if you're talking to a third person.
mhm,
You can write it out as if you're writing a letter to this person. Not necessarily you have to
mm,
send it, but
mm,
it's a form of expression. So that's why I think we gotta be a bit more creative in the way we express. Like even like taking yourself out to a karaoke and just singing all the sad songs and crying it out
Mm.
might be, therapeutic, might be
Yeah.
really healing for some, right? So, and might be, and that's the thing, it's not what we want to be aware of is taking care of ourselves is not, it should not just be a one-time thing. Oh, I go to that karaoke once, cukup lah tu.
Mm. Mm.
It doesn't work like that. We need maintenance. We need to take care, just like how we go to the gym like once a week, a few
Mm.
times a week, right? It's the same as our mental health. We check in on ourselves, not just once a month or not just like one time, but do it in a regular occurrence. And it's the same. What do you do to take care of yourself? What do you do to express yourself? And what do you do to, release? I think that's the most important, to release. But yeah, it's sometimes it's a struggle for some people.
True. I think I'm one of that person that you mentioned that write down anything that happened because I think I tried this last year. Like I just having depression or something. I just decided to okay, I want to write down my thoughts, my reflection on things, blah blah blah. And I think it does help. And yeah, I think I do agree. Like some people may not when it comes to like saying the word express, usually people will think that of think of like we express as saying someone like the way I'm talk to you. I think it's true that there are a lot of ways to express because I think I've seen a lot in Instagram that usually like those people who go to gym sometimes they just broke up with their relationship, so they like that's the way of expressing like those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Or like they go boxing to express
Yeah.
their anger. So
Mm.
these are ways that we can do express our emotions in a safe way,
Mm.
and a safe and product, not necessarily product, but healthy way lah. Instead of like, you spiral into like binge drinking.
Mm.
Like you go like every night and drink, drink, drink. Instead of that, like you go to the gym and you go kickboxing and then you punch things, and then after that you're like you cry after the session. It's like,
Mm.
what's wrong with me? Why am I crying? It's like, okay, that's a form of expression. You're
Mm.
releasing emotions. So yeah,
And I think
yeah.
I just thought this recently. I think this is what I wanted to do, and I will try my best to like try not to let this negative energy toward that someone. Like if you hate that one, that like someone, don't let this negative energy towards her. I think towards him or her, like just I don't know, just do something, express to like something else. Like maybe if you have like a punching bag at home, just express it on that thing. Don't try to put it on someone. I think it will worsen the situation. So that's
Yeah,
yeah,
in
I
some ways.
yeah. So moving on to the next question. I think when relating this topic with Malaysia and youth or youngsters, they are very, very, very important for the country, especially in the future. So, in your opinion, do you think mental health issue among youth is one of the Malaysia's current challenges?
Current challenges, definitely, I think. And I don't think it's just the youth. I think it's like the entire population. But like you
Mm.
said, probably most likely the youth, because for the youth, right, there's more challenges that honestly mental health might be the last concern.
Mm.
Like for example, one of the most common things is, or the most pressing matter is about financial stability.
Mm.
The youth is either burdened with student debt, or student loans, and then or needing to you know work a certain amount of years to pay off a bond
Mm.
for the study. Again, it's somewhat of a loan, right?
Yeah.
And just how inflation really has taken a toll, especially on our generation, that we're probably unable to achieve the same financial achievements like our parents did, or even our uncles and aunties, right? Like buying a house then was something people can afford.
Yeah.
That might not be something that our generation can easily achieve, right? It's um, like for the same amount of work that probably the older generation did. You want to buy a house, maybe you may need to work 3 jobs or have a really stressful job that pays a lot of money, right? So, despite that, right, actually, all of this does influence the youth's mental health, right? It impacts them a lot. Like, um, but like I said, because it causes a lot of stress, it causes a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety, and then again, it can cause depression. It's like I'm working myself off here, and what are my gains? It's like I'm almost broke every month, or I can barely make ends meet and things like that. So, yeah, definitely can influence, and which in fact, if that issue is not being taken care of, it's even more costly, because then mental health issue is like not taking care of your mental health or having mental health concerns can be costly, because you might need to spend money on therapy, might need to spend money on medication and all these things, right? Spend money on books and things like that. So it's like I said, and I believe, like, if one of that financial concerns is being addressed, then we can really see what is the population amongst the youth that truly are struggling with their mental health that's not caused with just financial difficulties. It's like the basic needs have been met, so then it will be mental health concerns lah. But like I said, it's intertwined in the end. If your basic needs are not being met, it affects your mental health, and vice versa. Your mental health issues can happen, and it can also affect your financial capacity and all that. So yeah, I would say it is a pressing matter, very important. Um, but I don't know what what is in store of to protect this lah. Like, for example, accessibility. Like, how are we improving that? How are we producing more mental health professionals so we can actually cater to the amount of people who need the services? Or how do we help to subsidize these services so that the students or the youth can actually afford it, or can actually get access to it, right? These are really important questions, which, like I said, because in terms of mental health, it's not necessarily an investment, it's not a money making thing, it's not profitable. So, like I said, it might be in the back burner lah, of things, despite that it's actually really, really important. Like, because these youth eventually will go into the workforce,
Yeah.
and imagine they're not being taught ways to cope well with their emotions and with stress. So, and have burnouts really, really quickly, to the point that it's really, really unhealthy for them, that they might quit and things like that. So that actually is more costly for the company when people are quitting really, really fast, for example, or if they're burnout, or if they're struggling here and there. So it's, again, actually a cost for the country, but it's just whether or not they see it um, as an important thing or not is a different question.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, like, if let's hypothetically say that the mental health still occurring and there's no like efforts to eradicate mental health in Malaysia, like how badly this mental health will affect future generation in Malaysia. Like, because I think the world is changing, because like for me, I understand that there's always someone that will break that bubble in term of work. So for example, like in term of like let's say editing video, I think it's pretty common nowadays for us to like watch edited video. Like I don't know, it seems very like it's not like a big thing. Like most people can do nowadays because of the application. They even have the preset. Oh, you only have to put this picture, and the app will help to edit because will help to edit the video. So like when you edit a video, so it's not as impressive like back compared to back in the days. Like in when let's say I'm being stands out, like I'm a pro editor, like people will be very impressive to me because I'm like sort of that one that can do that. So I think yeah, that there's always that people that go higher and higher, so that's sort of burden uh
Yeah.
nowadays generation. So yeah, what how do you foresee Malaysia if the mental health?
Doesn't improve lah, or doesn't
Yeah,
actually get taken
yeah.
seriously. Mm, yeah, I think it would certainly really affect the health outcomes. Maybe suicidality would increase. I think that's the main one because we can really see that during the pandemic, and how, because like it is very unfair to compare the circumstances from before and now, right? The
Mm,
pressure, like I said, the pressure, the type of work, the type of lifestyle is so different. So the
mm,
type of stress and the how it amounts is also different. And
yeah,
again, different people cope differently. So if they were to say, oh, why are your younger generation now like sikit-sikit kill themselves, sikit-sikit
mm,
kill themselves, it's not so much about also lembik, so this, it's not so much about that. It's more of like, that is that is actually the fact that we can see being not emotionally in tune with yourself
mm,
translates in lack of empathy. So lack of empathy means you're unable to really comprehend what a person may be going
mm,
through, and put yourself, really try to put yourself in their shoes in that moment, in that, without comparing and carrying your biases, your perspectives, and your beliefs, and saying, this is this person's experience. I cannot imagine how hard that must be. That is the practice, what we hope that people do, right? To be able to empathize.
yeah,
But for you to empathize is for you to be in tune with your emotions, for you to fully and comprehend different perspectives and different scenarios and different situations, and how, wow, like if I'm in that situation, how would that be like? But I'm not. So, it must be really hard for this person, right? Kan? So, um, yeah, I think number one, probably like mental health concerns, mental health issues might increase even more, and if it's not addressed, then probably suicidality rates also will increase. And yeah, I think those are the two main things that I can think of, how it can go from here, right? If it's not being addressed. And again, it's going to cost a lot of, it's going to be costly for the
mm,
country, in terms of healthcare, in terms of managing this, um, in terms of the workforce also. Yeah, and in terms of the economy, because if you're depressed, like clinically depressed,
mm,
you're not going to be able to, you might struggle to go to work. And imagine if the entire youth population cannot go to work.
yeah,
What are we going to do? Right?
yeah, true.
It's a real thing.
Yeah,
If everyone is anxious, they don't go out, they don't go to the mall.
mm,
Who's going to spend? Nobody. So it's that's why I think it's more economic when we think, you know, but it's again not profitable, not directly at least. It's more of like if you were to prevent, then you would
mm,
prevent losses.
mm,
But if you would invest in it, it's not gonna give you profit, but it's gonna avoid losses.
yeah.
Something like that, you know what I mean?
I,
So
I get it. Like it's, but I understand that pretty much. And
yeah,
I think uh I sort of it's I think you said about self bias, right? To see like to comprehend like others' point of view. I I would say quite lucky because I sort of learned this. Like I taught myself to like see others' POV, but it's not as easy as it is. Like I think last year I still, even though last year I already like tend to see others' POV like blah blah blah. I still, I would say, pretty much self biased because what happened last year is that I get really annoyed like when I ask something like yes or no question. I just want answer, right, like yes or no, like, but people tend to avoid saying no, and that's made me like quite angry, like, and I at that moment I didn't get that POV of why they say no, just answer the question. I just want answers because for me, I I can, I would say that I can manage my ego. Like even I being rejected, I still can accept it. So I just want answer. But I think one of my friends told me like, oh, they saying no probably because they afraid of like saying no to someone might cause this relationship or friendship to be like over, right? Like, oh, I might be like um what's the word? Panas baran type of person. So I will just go out, explode just like that. So I think from that moment, I try to like be more open, like try not to be self-biased too much, like really trying to see through other shoes. But it's really hard. Like it's not as easy as just saying that.
right. I agree.
Yeah, right. So move swiftly onward to the next question. Last two question.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks for the heads up.
Acknowledging that mental health issue is one of the Malaysia's current challenges. How does the country or government handling with the mental health issue that occur in Malaysia? Um, what are some of their efforts, or if there are none as of current, like what they should do or act upon it, starting early, like you say, like go to clinic and you just the parenting start to teach their kids about regular this and how to deal with mental health because I think like I said the world is changing, so you can just like let the world like go over the top and just leave other parts. It's like the early days when the internet, the computer like comes to the world, like you can just let those old people like not learning about it. You have
Yeah,
to like go like with it, like
method.
letting the kids learn it for like because I think yeah like the pressure of the world, something like that. So
True.
I think in terms of mental health, we like it needs a change as well as the world is changing, something like that.
Yeah, it needs
Mm.
to be flexible.
Yeah.
You're right. It does need to adapt to. That's why I said like last time. To be completely fair with you, like the mental health professional community
Mm,
has always been, has always emphasized and advocated against self-diagnosing.
mm,
Don't ever self-diagnose. It's dangerous. It's not
mm,
good. It's unhealthy. But then, like I said, world is changing. We
mm,
still have these issues, but how are we solving this?
yeah.
If our solutions are going to take like 100 years, how about those who've lived before that? How are they going to
Uh,
cope? How are they
mm,
going to survive? Right. So it's essentially, like you said, we have to be more creative with our ideas. We have to be a bit more flexible in terms of like how we, um, cope with it. And it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's got to be more flexible, less rigid. So yeah, it's yeah, it's that's That's why I said nowadays accessibility. Okay,
Yeah.
people learn things. They might self-diagnose, but as long as they're getting, they can get the access to the accurate information, and it's
Mm.
not endangering them.
Mm.
You know, what can we do? Like that might be the best
Yeah.
situation or solution at that moment. For now, good lah.
Mm-hmm.
Unless we can get a better one later lah.
I think the Naluri app is one of the better one. Yeah.
Yeah, one of
Yeah.
the ways. Yeah.
Mm. So last but not least, um, I think we as a student are obligated to take falsafah dan isu semasa as one of our subjects in university. In the subject itself, we will talk about psychology, sociology, philosophy, metaphysics, and etc. So, in your opinion, do you think this subject that we learn actually acts as one of the approaches to eradicate mental health in Malaysia?
I think it can be a start.
Mm,
Again, it depends on, I guess, depends on execution and depends on intention. So when
mm,
you have all these falsafa modules, like what do you intend to achieve with the students? If you
yeah,
want to spread, if you want to, invite more conversations, increase more critical thinking, then
mm,
how are we going to do that? Do we invite conversations, or are we and inviting conversations also means that might be opposing views from
yeah,
yourself as the
mm,
cikgu. So are you open to that, or are you ready for that,
yeah,
and would you want that, or again it goes back to intention and execution. So um, I think it's I truly believe education is a great platform for learning about mental health. Yes, but it doesn't have to be in a formal way. You
mhm,
know, one formal way is one way to do it, right? You have classes, you make this student research, the presentation, take the quiz, do
mhm,
the assignment, and take the final exam. So on paper, it
yeah,
might look like the student really gets it lah. Um, but you can do it in informal ways, in how, because I say, like, teachers are really like great, great. They are really powerful tools, influences.
mhm,
Like, parents is like your first line of your role model. Teachers are your second.
mhm,
So how you can still eradicate mental health concerns and invite the conversation of mental health by creating a safe space in your classroom.
mhm,
Or in this classroom, we don't discriminate, we don't call names, we don't bully.
yeah,
How do you as a teacher follow through with that? How do you enforce that? How do you protect that for every student? So these are things that you can do it in an informal way. And it is still about mental health. If
mm,
a student is unable to complete homework, I can understand the frustration.
mhm,
So, but how do you approach the conversation? Do you immediately assume that this person is lazy?
yeah,
Or do you invite the conversation of compassion and be like, okay, what's going on? Something about this homework is, even in the motivation, I cannot do it. Sure, I have no motivation, I have no desire to do it. Okay, it is still something to explore, something to be curious about. Or what about the homework actually makes you don't want to do it? Oh, actually, it's really hard, and I
mhm,
don't like when it's hard because it just makes me feel like a failure
yeah,
because I can't get it right. So I don't like it. So I don't like coming here. I don't like this subject. So once the once you, I guess, you as a teacher, you're able to express that, or you're able to hold that space for your students. Um, that's how you can model. And modeling is an indirect way of teaching. You teach your kids, you teach your students, oh, this is how you can be later on, when you go into the workforce, you become a leader, you become a manager, and you get an employee, right? A team member. And it's like not performing, or suddenly like doesn't come for meetings, or just, disengaged.
Yeah.
You immediately call them and make assumptions and say, you're just lazy. You would repeat what you've learned, right?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
what I was taught, this is what I was exposed to, this is what I went through. But if
Mhm.
you were to go through a different thing, where you were faced with a bit more of like emotional compassion and acceptance and acknowledging it, then you might practice the same. You know, it's like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Miss, for this interview. I didn't expect to take 30 minutes more than your time because
That's okay.
because I thought it's only like 15 questions, so it's going to be like pretty quick. So
Okay.
I want to thank you so much, Miss,
No
for this
problem.
interview.
I hope
This is
memberi manfaat.
hopefully, yeah. And yeah, I think I want to thank you so much because I think it's kind of make me feel bad because I take 30 minutes of your time.
It's okay.
um, but yeah,
I'm glad
thank you
to
so
do it.
much. And I think I would like to thank you, like I think for because I messaged you right, and I expressed feelings toward you, like all the thoughts and everything. So I want to thank you for be there, and
Oh, thanks
also
for letting me know.
I would say it means a lot. And once again, thank you so much.
Thanks as well.
Hope you have a very nice day.
You too, and all the
Okay,
best for your assignment.
thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Bye bye.